Greetings and welcome to EC Connect and Logan Startup Hub. I'm Brad Apps. In June at the Logan Startup Hub, we hosted an event about life sciences, highlighting some great things being done in this arena in Queensland. For those who couldn't make the event, we've uploaded them and made them available on the Innovate Logan website and YouTube channel. Before we start, I'd like to give you a quick update on what we do here at EC Connect and Logan Startup Hub. So EC Connect is a software company specializing in fully automated and high quantity billing and payment systems, as well as client management, data management and system integration tools. We've been providing these systems to the telecommunication industry for over 14 years and also have a large suite of telco provisioning and management facilities as well. The EC Connect team consists of developers, software analysts and system administrators, and due to the numerous IT platforms which our software runs on, we have much experience with Linux, AWS and MySQL. We've also helped numerous startups with our platforms, expertise and custom development. In 2017, we opened part of our office as a co-work space, offering the unique opportunity for startups to work alongside an existing successful company, and here Logan Startup Hub was born. The goal of our initiative here is to increase our presence in the community, share our experiences with new and upcoming businesses, provide a location to facilitate collaboration and the sense of community, and support local employment and allow people to work close to home. We also host events to help small business, entrepreneurs and startups. We are supported by Advance Queensland and Logan City Council. We thank you for their support. Now enjoy these presentations and we'll catch up soon. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. Hi, I'm Ashley Baxter. I am the founder of EarthOffset, which I started technically the beginning of 2019, but I'd been kind of thinking about the concept for a couple months before then. So basically what we're about, I'll just kind of provide a bit of context. Here we go. So our kind of core mission is that reducing emissions has become our most pressing challenge. Maybe not quite right now while we're in the middle of a pandemic, but that's really what motivated me to start EarthOffset. The problems that we're targeting are, well, firstly, that 3% of global emissions is actually caused just by sending our organic waste to landfill. So that's things like your leftover food waste, all of those kitchen scraps and green waste, things like that. Relatively speaking, for the fact that's a massive percentage of total emissions from something that's so preventable. Another problem that we're targeting is that half of our food supply is actually grown using artificial fertilizers, which are not only terrible for the environment, but they're also actually running out. The artificial fertilizers that we mine are a non-renewable resource. So we kind of identified very early on that there was a super simple solution to both of these massive problems, and that is composting. So compost is an accessible, affordable solution to some really big environmental issues. But why aren't we all doing it then? If it's so simple, it should be, every single person's getting it done. We kind of identified that there were a few barriers to entry for people to start composting, and those are pretty much these three. A lot of people, particularly nowadays, are confused by what it takes to be a composter, what it entails, how much you have to do, how much you have to spend, and it's just, there's too much information out there for people to wrap their heads around. It's also super inefficient. Composting, surprisingly, is actually an incredibly complex biological process, and people tend to think, you just throw your waste in and that's sorted. And it's actually way more sophisticated than that. And then finally, because people are confused, because they're doing it wrong, it tends to get really unappealing. Like we've all seen a really bad compost bin where it's like stinks and it's really, it's a mess. We won't talk about that, but that's one of the big reasons why people don't want to compost. And so we kind of, knowing that it was such an incredible solution to the climate crisis, we set out to find a way to get everyone doing it, recycling 100% of our waste, using it as a natural fertilizer. And this is what we came up with. So we want to make composting approachable, efficient, and fun. And we're doing that with Monty, which is our IoT compost monitoring device for smart homes and cities. So basically, you can insert Monty into any existing compost setup. It continuously tracks decomposition data, including temperature, volatile organic compounds, and moisture, which we then transmit to our cloud analysis model, where we analyze that data for insights into how to manage your compost. So it's a smarter way to do things. We're really just bringing, all of those advancements in technology, whether it's IoT analysis, data aggregation, into your composting. We're also developing a software platform that you can access through a mobile app that makes it just so accessible to the everyday composter. So it delivers you really simple, understandable instructions on exactly how to manage your compost. It's adaptable to every kind of composter. So whether, you're just a stay-at-home residential, everything's done in the backyard, or whether you're, a large-scale commercial composter who's wanting to optimize their operations. We also recognize that composting is not depending on who you are, it may not be the most rewarding activity. You're just kind of putting it in the bin. So we've found a way to actually make it engaging by gamifying the carbon offset that you're creating through your composting. So Monty can actually calculate your real-time carbon offset that you're preventing through your composting, and kind of think of it like Strava for compost. When we then take that number and then gamify it with awards, rankings, all of those things to keep people motivated with their composting. So it'd be like, you're composting for this week, it was the equivalent of planting a tree. That way people can continue to be motivated and inspired to continue composting. We also see this as the chance to really implement a decentralized infrastructure around composting. So rather than you having to drop your waste off, at the end of the driveway, it gets collected by a massive diesel consuming truck, you can actually find local composters in your area and drop off your waste with them, connect with them, engage with them. And so not only are we having an environmental impact with the composting, we can also build communities around it. And finally, we are also building a massive educational infrastructure on composting, organic decomposition, all the agricultural stuff as well. There is so much information out there on composting, but there is no single source of truth that aggregates it and delivers it customized to the kind of person and composter you are. And so that's exactly what we're doing. Those are the main features of our software platform, but there is so much more that we want to include. We see the future of organic waste as fully circular, and we're enabling everyone to take part in it. And that's not just, like I said, restricted to residential backyard composters. Whether it's your suburban community garden or a school, I very firmly believe that every single school should have a compost operation. They have the space, they have that opportunity for education. There's also things like apartments, shared work and living spaces, and then finally public council areas. All of these have the potential to do on-site composting, which doesn't just have an environmental impact. It also reduces expenses associated with waste. It provides a free stream of natural fertiliser that a lot of these places can replace their existing landscaping costs with. It just has so many benefits to these markets that we eventually want to target. For the residential solution, it's a pretty simple kind of B2C consumer model. It's just we sell the Monty device. We have a basic software platform that they can access, gives you all those features that I just mentioned. When we start moving into those more enterprise markets, which are things like schools and like I said, the shared living areas, all of that, we're going to be offering more enterprise solutions. So that's like custom packages, including all sorts of other composting infrastructure, I suppose. And it's going to be a more bespoke solution for those customers. Now, there isn't just those features I mentioned before in the software platform. We also have the potential to tap into numerous recurring revenue streams. So different features like exciting gamification, freemiums, and things like that, affiliate product sales. So in referring people to additional compost purchases they might want to make. And then the last one, which I think is probably the most exciting to me, is the waste behavioral data that we can actually sell on and engage with. It's nothing nefarious. It's not like we're selling your personal data, but understand we're going to be aggregating like literally a world first collation of organic decomposition data. There is nothing of the extent that we're going to be able to collect by continuously tracking thousands of composting operations. And there's the potential to provide that to, town planners, like academics and commercial composters who want to use that for their own purposes. And so that's just a really exciting potential future business avenue. So this is our team. Obviously there's me right there. So I studied business management and IT at UQ. It's funny, I actually did a whole bunch of different career paths, and I volunteered and I tried a whole bunch of different stuff before I decided to pursue this. I always knew that I wanted to do something in environmentalism, but I never really knew anything about compost before I got started. So yeah, if you told me 2 years ago that this is what I was going to be doing, I probably would have been a little bit like taken aback, because who wants to work in compost? I'm also supported by Phoebe and Alex. So Phoebe's kind of second in command. She heads up business development, does all that. She's got an extensive professional services and legal background. Alex is our head of engineering, and he's absolutely brilliant. He's been helping develop the Monty hardware device and all of the electronics and design that goes into that. We've got a small core team, but we're also supported by our product partners. So Joseph Mark is our digital product partner, and they're an incredible design and development agency based in Brisbane. They're actually like so genius. They provided so much in their services and advisory, and it really just helped us kind of prepare our foundations for building out a large-scale software platform. Also, another product partner in industrial design is Clandestine. They're another Brisbane-based company, and basically we wouldn't have anything of Monty without them. When I first got into this, I underestimated just how much goes into developing a mass manufactured hardware product, and having this incredibly experienced, competent industrial design firm on our team was just unequivocally useful. Yeah, so that's really the team. And that's the business, and that's the product and the technology. But how exactly did we get here? Because it's been quite a journey to get all of that stuff together. So basically, like I said, I started this at the beginning of 2019 officially, but before then I'd really been I learned about composting and the potential of it around halfway through 2018. And I just kept thinking about it, and and I was about to graduate a semester later. So I was like, probably need to find a job or figure out something to do once I graduate, so I'm not just kind of floating around. I found out about compost. I found out about its potential, and the more I was looking into it, the more inspired I was to pursue it as a career. So UQ offered this competition. It was called Sustainable Innovation Student Challenge Award. I was offered through one of the engineering centres, and I applied for that. I didn't really know if we were going to get it, because the first prize was $25,000. So I was kind of like, oh, that's a lot. I'm not sure. I don't know. So I suppose I applied without really considering the actual reality that if we'd won, what was going to happen. We did win, which was insane. And so I suddenly had $25,000 sitting in my bank account, and I'm like, oh God, I've got to do something with this. Which doesn't sound like a bad problem to have, but it was a very confronting one. And so UQ also offers a startup accelerator, and it's got like a startup hub, kind of like what's at Logan. And I got more involved in that space, and I ended up with that initial funding, applying for their iLab accelerator. That was amazing. That was like, I cannot endorse enough how critical it is to have like a supportive network around you that has already gone through all the problems you've gone through. Yeah, we've since then done a lot. Like you saw previously, we've designed and developed Monty. We've done all the scope and the UI for the software platform. We've started onboarding people, and so kind of and we've also done a lot of testing and validation of the technology, which I think, especially if you're doing hardware or kind of advanced analytics component in your product, you need to ensure that you've sufficiently tested and validated it. So we finalized that design, and I suppose at the end of last year was really when we're like, okay, it's time for the next step. What we're doing is we're going to be doing a 100-unit launch. And so basically, oh yeah, that's next month. And so basically, we're locally manufacturing 100 Monties, and we're going to be selling them to kind of influential people and organizations in the composting space, which is going to get us ready for a crowdfunding campaign in July. Maybe a bit after, but that's going to be kind of our mass market launch to get Monty out to those residential, I call them crazy composters, but the ones who are just really passionate about composting and are really excited by new technologies in the space. And yeah, that's when we'll be moving on to mass manufacture. As a little kind of like insert, in order to finance that 100-unit launch, because hardware is expensive, apparently, as I probably should have been a bit more prepared for. We actually did a pre-seed funding round, just recently closed it, doing all the commercial stuff, which was very helpful, and that's going to get us all the way to the mass manufacture. It was challenging, especially during right now, like it was funny. We opened the round before the reality of the pandemic started to hit people, and so it wasn't that difficult to have those meetings and to have those discussions back then. But as it started to become real that we're actually going into recession, it got difficult. So if anyone wants to talk about that, then I'm more than happy to answer any or tell any horrible war stories. But yeah, so that's kind of what we've done. That's kind of where we're going. That's been our whole journey so far, and it's been pretty insane. Not gonna lie. So yeah, this is kind of our big goal though. This is what our mission is. Like, this is, the 5-year, 10-year plan for what we want to do. It's not really just a product anymore though. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, but these are really what we're targeting and what we're wanting to engage with as a company. We're very committed to this mission and to these tangible KPIs and goals that we want to reach. So we think that it's incredibly important that we keep that at the core of everything we do and every decision we have to make. So, because, and this is always like the ending, 5% of our total emissions could be cut. Like, it doesn't sound like much, but on a quantitative scale, 5% of all our emissions from simply composting is an incredible accomplishment. And that's what we're aiming for, because, it's composting. It's not that difficult. It's something that is accessible and affordable to literally every single person on the planet. And all it takes is putting your waste into a different bin.
So just say if I've got one of these devices in my compost bin, and we do have a...
Do you have a compost bin?
Yep. So I'd love to be...
Oh, do you?
I'd love to be a guinea pig or a tester.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'd love to be one of those 100 initial people if you want.
Absolutely. I'll add your email.
Take part in that.
Perfect.
But when you get the data, do we get the feedback on an individual basis about what we're doing, as well as do we get it like on a regional basis as well? Do you do aggregation like that?
As in, like, like all the composters in your region?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that's what the gamification. Oh, okay, I see. Do you mean like how good your compost is compared to other people?
No, not necessarily. Just it'd be good to know sort of how well we're doing as an individual. So how many,
Yeah.
how good our composting is as an individual, but then also as how good Brisbane is, say, or Logan
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
That's actually a really interesting like concept in the ranking, I suppose, on the regional level. We have kind of just like done that through the carbon offset tracking, but I think that's actually a really interesting future metric to compare, of like, because you can actually quantify how high quality someone's composting operation is, and that's not necessarily just through the carbon offset. So yeah, we haven't actually included that in this one, but I think it's a really interesting like, sorry, oh, I'm hearing the echo from your end, I think. But it is a really interesting functionality, and I'll definitely want to look into that more.
Okay, excellent. And so are you targeting just Australia at the moment, or are you going to be selling this globally?
So for the 100 units, yeah, it's just going to be in Southeast Queensland. We were thinking of doing a little bit more through Australia, because there's quite a few really exciting like permaculture farms and stuff down in New South Wales, but probably not going to do that now. For the crowdfunding campaign, though, we're definitely targeting a global market. There are a few restrictions with crowdfunding campaigns and selling internationally. There are different hardware like standards you need to meet for different markets, and you need to take into account like the countries that you're targeting through your distribution plans. So the countries that we're going to be making available to purchase through the crowdfunding campaign, it's likely going to be North America and Europe, and a few countries here and there. But that'll be kind of decided strategically based on our marketing that we do prior and where we're getting the most feedback, if that kind of makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, once we reach, once we like, we're able to commence, we've got our assembly line all set up and we can start doing full online sales. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a global product.
Can I ask you a question about maybe it's an urban myth or something about composting? Is it
Yeah, of
true
course.
is it true that you shouldn't put your potatoes and onions in the compost?
See, like all of these things, it's a bit more like contextual. So like, obviously with potatoes and onions, the problem you get with composting is that they may start sprouting because they're in a really good environment to do that. And that's not necessarily a problem, like per se. If you're actually regularly maintaining your compost and you're starting to get those sort of sprouts, then you can just like break them up and like deal with it that way. If you don't, and you wouldn't want to go putting in like 100 kilos of it in your compost, because then that's going to end up having like those flow on effects, and you're not actually going to be decomposing. It's going to be leaching up all the nitrogen into growing those sprouts. So it is going to be really contextual based on like the size and capacity and state of decomposition in your composting, if that makes sense. And it's kind of the same as, when people say you shouldn't put citrus materials in your compost. It's like, it's going to depend on what your compost is, like how mature it is, what the temperatures you're hitting are like. Like if you've got a really good compost pile and it's like consistently getting above 60 degrees, you can put anything in there. Like, not anything, but it's going to be a lot more forgiving than if you're doing cold composting and you've got those periods of time where things like potatoes and onions could be sprouting and could be damaging the decomposition process.
No, that's great, actually. And then can you just provide us one piece of advice or one gotcha that you would say to anybody who's got an idea and thinking of turning it into a business? Can you think of anything?
Be in it for the long game. Like, I think that, and I felt like this too, that's probably like, because there's going to be so much advice on other things, but the stories you read in the media of overnight successes and these people who, like, they had a brilliant idea and they spent a few months coding it up in their backyard and in their garage, and then made $1 billion from it. Like, they are just so few and far between. And when you look into them further, it often turns out they've had previous successes, or they had connections, or they've had some other factor weighing in on that really fast success. And, you know, it's not necessarily going, like, you may become super successful really quickly, but it's incredibly unlikely. So I think that having your mindset in that, like, I am willing to spend years working on this. This is something I'm so passionate about, and this is something that I want to dedicate my time to. I'm happy to to spend a long time doing it, is I think probably one of the best ways you can, I suppose, prepare your mindset for it. I was like everyone at the beginning. I was like, oh, it's not going to take me ages. Like, I've got my plan sorted. Like, I planned it out. I had everything ready. I'm like, I'm going to get this done by this deadline. I'm going to get this done by this deadline, and everything's going to work perfectly. And even if, like, we haven't had anything go, like, majorly wrong, we haven't had, like, any severe setbacks or anything like that. There haven't been any, like, legal or IP or technical problems, but it still takes longer than expected, because you're working with people and events that you can't predict. I mean, like, Exhibit A being this global pandemic, that's definitely pushed things back by a few months.
Yep, exactly.
But,
it's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's, I would say that's probably the biggest one. Like, prepare yourself for a really long game with this.